The Galactic Alliance had held strong for 12,000 cycles. Hundreds of species living in relative harmony, sharing technology, resources, and culture across 27 spiral arms of the Milky Way. It was an age of unprecedented peace and prosperity until the void came. They emerged from the darkness between galaxies, massive ships that defied comprehension, black vessels that absorbed light rather than reflected it, shaped like twisted, gnarled hands reaching for prey. The void didn't communicate. They simply took. Admiral Trell of the Phasian Defense Force stood on the bridge of his flagship, the ocean boundless horizon, watching another world burn. Caldara, a verdant agricultural planet of 6 billion souls, was being systematically stripped of all resources. The void's harvest ships descended like locusts, draining oceans, mining continents, to dust, and extracting the planet's core energy in hours. That's the 12th world this cycle. His second-in-command, Major Len, said grimly. Our weapons barely scratch their shields. Trell's 4 eyes blinked in sequence, a sign of deep distress among his kind. The Alliance fleet had thrown everything they had at the invaders. Antimatter cannons, quantum disruptors, gravitational lenses, all proved ineffective against void technology. The Council is assembling an emergency session, Len continued. Representatives from all member species will attend. To what end? Trell's voice was hollow. We've lost 37% of our territory in less than a cycle. At this rate, the Alliance will collapse within the year. There's talk of the humans, Len said carefully. Trell's head crest flared in surprise. Earth? They're barely a spacefaring species. They only achieved faster-than-light travel 3 centuries ago. Yes, but they've been asking to join the Alliance for decades. We've always denied them because of their… Len searched for the diplomatic term. Aggressive tendencies. Trell understood the implication. Humans were unique among known species. While most evolved toward cooperation and peaceful coexistence, humans seemed hardwired for conflict. Their brief history was stained with blood, their literature obsessed with war, their entertainment glorifying violence. They were deemed too unstable for inclusion in the galactic community. The Council wouldn't seriously consider. They're desperate, Admiral. We all are. The humans have been monitoring our communications. They know about the void. They've offered assistance. Trell gazed at the view screen, where Caldara's atmosphere was being stripped away like skin from fruit. The screams of billions had gone silent hours ago. What could they possibly offer that our combined civilizations cannot? According to their ambassador, Len said, they've been preparing for something like this their entire existence. Later, that day, in the Grand Council chamber on Ulthrax Prime, representatives from 842 species gathered in desperate conclave. The massive chamber, normally a place of measured debate and cool diplomacy, buzzed with fear. Hi, Councillor Vex, an ancient Ulthraxi whose translucent skin revealed the worried pulsing of multiple hearts, called for order. The situation is beyond critical, Vex announced, her voice amplified throughout the chamber. Our most advanced weapons are ineffective. Our fastest ships cannot outrun them. Our strongest shields cannot withstand them. Hope is becoming difficult to maintain, a murmur rippled through the assembly. We have exhausted all conventional options, Vex continued. Therefore, the Council proposes an unprecedented measure. We believe the time has come to request the assistance of Earth. The chamber erupted. Some representatives shouted objections, others nodded in grim agreement. A few simply sat in stunned silence. Admiral Trell watched the chaos unfold. He had fought in 3 border conflicts and lived through the Great Plague. Never had he seen such panic among the usually stoic Alliance leadership. As the tumult subsided, High Councillor Vex spoke again, her voice carrying the weight of a civilization, facing extinction. We need the humans. May the stars forgive us, but we need what they bring. And so it was decided. A delegation would be sent to Earth with all haste. Hope was lost, unless Earth's soldiers stepped into the fire. Captain Jake Walker stood at attention in the United Earth Defense Force headquarters beneath Mount Rainier, hardly believing the aliens standing before him. The delegation from the Galactic Alliance, beings he'd only seen in restricted intelligence briefings, looked simultaneously majestic and terrified. Let me get this straight, General Diane Reed said, her weathered face betraying nothing as she addressed the aliens. For 3 centuries, you've rejected Earth's applications to join your alliance because we're too violent. But now that these void creatures are kicking your collective asses, suddenly our aggressive tendencies are in demand? High Counselor Vex's translator produced perfect English, but couldn't hide her discomfort. We recognize the irony, General. Nevertheless, the situation is dire. Walker studied the alien delegation. The towering, four-eyed Admiral Trell, the crystalline Ambassador Fora, whose body refracted light like a living prism, the diminutive but ancient Counselor Vex, who'd reportedly witnessed the birth and death of stars. "Show us what we're up against," Reed ordered. The holographic display activated, showing footage of void ships harvesting worlds. Walker's stomach tightened as he witnessed entire cities being devoured, oceans drained, mountains pulverized into dust. 26 billion Alliance citizens have perished, Trell said flatly. 312 worlds stripped bare. Our weapons are ineffective. Reed's eyes narrowed. And you think we can help how, exactly? Your species possesses a unique perspective, Vex said carefully. Throughout your evolution, you've never stopped preparing for war, even during peacetime. The Alliance evolved beyond conflict thousands of years ago. We've forgotten what you never allowed yourselves to forget. Which is, Walker found himself asking. How to fight an enemy that cannot be reasoned with, Vex replied. How to confront extinction with defiance rather than acceptance. General, Reed exchanged glances with the other UEDF officers. You're asking us to fight a war you can't win, against an enemy with superior technology and numbers. Yes, Trell said simply. Walker almost laughed at the absurdity. Earth's military technology, while advanced by human standards, was primitive, compared to Alliance capabilities. If their weapons couldn't harm the Void, what chance did humanity have? We need time to consider, Reed said, diplomatically. After the Alliance representatives were escorted out, Reed turned to her officers. Opinions? It's suicide, Colonel Martinez stated flatly. Their antimatter weapons can't penetrate Void shields, but our kinetic projectiles and nuclear arsenals will? Please. They're desperate, Commander Choi added. But we can't sacrifice our people for a fight that isn't ours. Walker cleared his throat. With respect, the fight is already ours. The Void will reach Earth eventually. The Alliance gives us access to their technology, their infrastructure. We might be able to innovate where they couldn't. Reed considered this. Captain Walker, you've spent time studying Alliance tech. What's their blind spot? They've had peace so long they've optimized for efficiency, not lethality, Walker replied. Their weapons are elegant but predictable. They don't understand asymmetric warfare, guerrilla tactics, or psychological operations. They don't think like predators anymore. Reed nodded slowly. And these void creatures have never encountered humans before. No, ma'am. Assemble a task force, Reed decided. Walker, you'll lead it. Select officers who think outside the box. I want proposals within 48 hours. If we're going to do this, we're going to do it our way. 3 days later, Captain Walker stood before the Alliance Council, presenting humanity's response. The chamber fell silent as he spoke. The United Earth Defense Force accepts your request for assistance, Walker announced. We will provide 10,000 soldiers initially, with specialized expertise in asymmetric warfare, infiltration, and adaptive combat. Relief visibly washed over the alien representatives. However, Walker continued, we have conditions. Our forces maintain autonomy, under UEDF command. We require unrestricted access to Alliance technology and intelligence. And most importantly, we will employ tactics that you may find uncomfortable. Admiral Trell's head crest flattened against his skull. What kind of tactics? Walker's expression hardened. The kind that win wars, Admiral. The kind your civilization has forgotten. For the first time in 12,000 cycles, the Galactic Alliance would learn what it meant to fight like humans. The Alliance battlecruiser Luminous Accord had never carried human passengers before. Its corridors, designed for beings of various physiologies, nonetheless felt alien to the 1,000 Earth soldiers who now called it home. Captain Walker strode through the ship's central promenade, noting how Alliance crew members subtly moved aside as he passed. "They're afraid of us," Lieutenant Emma Torres observed quietly, matching his stride. "Good," Walker replied. "Fear might keep them from interfering." The UEDF task force had been deployed to 10 different Alliance vessels, a strategic decision Walker had insisted upon. If the aliens wanted human help, they would have to integrate humans throughout their fleet. Walker's team included specialists rarely found in conventional military units: hackers, game theorists, cultural anthropologists, even former criminals, with expertise in thinking like predators. People the Alliance would never have considered for warfare, precisely why Walker had selected them. Admiral Trell was waiting in the command center, a vast chamber filled with holographic displays showing the fleet's position relative to the approaching void vessels. "Captain Walker," Trell acknowledged stiffly, "your people are settled?" "As much as possible," Walker replied. "Have you considered our initial proposals?" Trell's 4 eyes blinked in sequence. "Your strategies are difficult for us to accept. Deliberately targeting the same vessel repeatedly to study incremental response changes. Setting traps using our own damaged ships as bait? These approaches risk unnecessary casualties." "With respect, Admiral, casualties are already beyond necessary," Walker said firmly. "You've lost billions fighting conventionally. We need data on how the Void responds to different threats, how they learn, how they prioritize. But sacrificing ships is better than sacrificing planets," Walker finished. "Your people have forgotten something crucial about warfare. Information is often more valuable than preservation of force, especially against an unknown enemy." Before Trell could respond, the ship's sensors detected Void activity. A single black vessel had broken from the main fleet and was approaching an Alliance mining outpost. "A scout," Trell explained. "They typically send one vessel ahead to assess resistance before committing their harvest ships." Walker studied the tactical display. "Perfect opportunity. How quickly can we intercept?" "Intercept? Our standard protocol is to evacuate the outpost and—" "No," Walker interrupted. "We're going to engage it, alone." The Admiral's head crest flared in alarm. "Captain, a direct confrontation would be foolish. Even one Void scout can—" "Admiral," Walker said quietly, "this is why you asked for our help. Let us show you what humans do." Hours later, the luminous Accord hung in space near the mining outpost, running silent with minimal power. Walker had ordered most systems shut down, making the ship appear damaged or abandoned, a tactic that puzzled the Alliance crew. "The Void vessel is approaching," Torres reported from her station. 12 minutes out." Walker nodded. "Status of the packages?" "All deployed and in position." Around the bridge, Alliance officers exchanged nervous glances. The packages were modified Alliance probes that the humans had repurposed into observation devices, their sensors recalibrated according to Walker's specifications. "What exactly are we hoping to learn?" Trell asked. "Everything," Walker replied. "How they scan, what frequencies they use, how they approach a target, what they consider a threat versus an opportunity." The Void Scout entered visual range, its black, gnarled form seeming to absorb the starlight around it. It moved with eerie precision toward the mining outpost. "Now we wait," Walker said, his eyes never leaving the view screen. The Void vessel extended appendages toward the outpost, beginning its resource extraction process. Walker watched intently, taking mental notes on every movement and energy signature. "It hasn't noticed us," Trell whispered. "Not yet," Walker agreed, "but it will." As if on cue, the Void Scout paused its harvesting and turned toward the luminous. "Accord, it's scanning us," Torres reported. "Multiple frequencies. The packages are collecting everything." Walker leaned forward. "Prepare to execute Phase 2. Let's see how it reacts when the dead ship suddenly comes alive." For the first time, in this long war, a Void vessel was about to encounter humanity. And humanity was watching very, very carefully. The data from the first encounter proved invaluable. 17 more followed over the next 2 weeks, each orchestrated by Walker's team, each yielding new insights into Void behavior and capabilities. The Alliance commanders watched in silent amazement as the humans compiled a comprehensive profile of their enemy. something no one had managed in a full cycle of devastating conflict. They learn, but not the way we do, Walker explained to the assembled Alliance leadership in the Luminous Accords conference chamber. They adapt to specific threats rather than developing general countermeasures. And most importantly, they prioritize efficiency over security. Lieutenant Torres manipulated the holographic display, showing recorded encounters. Notice how they always maintain harvesting operations, even when under attack? Resource collection never stops, regardless of defensive requirements. Admiral Trell leaned forward. You believe this is a weakness? Critical weakness? Walker confirmed. It suggests their directive is absolute. Gather resources at all costs. We can exploit that. Commander Kiv, a Reptilian Alliance officer who had been working closely with the humans, spoke up. But what about their superior shielding? Our weapons still cannot penetrate. Walker smiled slightly. We don't need to penetrate their shields. We just need to get them to lower them voluntarily. The conference room erupted in confused murmurs. Lower their shields? Voluntarily? The concept seemed absurd. Walker continued. The void scanning technology seeks specific resource signatures. Their harvesters deploy specialized extraction equipment calibrated to those signatures. He gestured to Torres, who brought up another simulation. We're going to give them exactly what they're looking for, Walker explained, but with a twist. The plan was audacious, disturbing even to the Alliance members. But after exhaustive debate, desperation won out over reservation. Operation Trojan, as the humans called it, was approved. 3 days later, the trap was set. A small, seemingly abandoned Alliance research station orbited a mineral-rich moon. In reality, the station had been heavily modified under Walker's direction, its core filled with precisely what the Void sought most: rare isotopes and element concentrations that their scanners would find irresistible. Hidden throughout nearby asteroids, 5 Alliance cruisers waited, modified with human-designed stealth systems. Aboard each vessel, mixed crews of humans and Alliance personnel prepared for combat, many Alliance members uncomfortable with the tactics they might soon employ. Contact, Torres reported from her station on the Luminous Accord. Void harvest. Ship approaching the research station. Walker nodded. Right on schedule. All units maintain communications blackout. Remember, we need them fully committed before we act. They watched as the massive black vessel approached the bait, extending its collection appendages. Preliminary scans completed, the Void ship positioned itself directly above the station. They're dropping shields around their extraction mechanism, Torres whispered. Just as we predicted. Walker's eyes narrowed. Patience. We need them to fully deploy. Minutes passed in tense silence. The Void vessel extended more appendages, penetrating the research station's outer hull, seeking the valuable resources within. Now, Walker commanded. Inside the research station, the resources came alive. What had appeared to be concentrated mineral deposits were actually thousands of micro-drones designed by Walker's team, each carrying a payload of modified nanites. They swarmed into the Void's extraction mechanisms, racing through the temporarily unshielded conduits and into the vessel itself. Simultaneously, the hidden Alliance cruisers decloaked and opened fire, not on the Void's impenetrable shields, but on its exposed harvesting apparatus. The Void ship reacted immediately, attempting to withdraw its vulnerable collection systems, but the damage was done. The nanites had penetrated its internal systems, while precision fire from the Alliance vessels severed several of its collecting tendrils. For the first time, a Void harvest ship retreated, damaged and compromised. On the Luminous Accord's bridge, stunned silence gave way to cautious celebration. Admiral Trell approached Walker, his expression a mixture of awe and discomfort. The nanites, Trell said quietly. What exactly will they do? Walker met his gaze steadily. They'll map the ship's internal layout, identify critical systems, and transmit everything back to us before self-destructing. Next time, we won't need to trick them into lowering their shields. This is not how the Alliance conducts warfare, Trell observed. Not quite a criticism. No, Walker agreed. It's how humans conduct it. And now, it's how we'll save your Alliance. The first real victory against the Void wouldn't make headlines across Alliance space. Walker had insisted on total operational secrecy. But it marked a turning point. The Predators had become prey, if only for a moment. And humanity was just getting started. The change in the Alliance military was palpable. Over the following months, 10,000 human soldiers integrated into the vast Alliance fleet, bringing with them strategies that would have been unthinkable before the Void. Small, elite teams, led by UEDF officers, transformed Alliance vessels into hunting parties, rather than defensive formations. Major Tom Harris, formerly of Earth's Special Forces, stood in the shadows of the Alliance border outpost Waypoint 7, watching the stars, through the observation deck's massive viewport. Beside him, his unlikely partner, a methane-breathing Alliance security officer named Zen, shifted uncomfortably. "Still no word from the infiltration team?" Zen asked, his translator converting complex chemical signals into English. "Not yet," Harris replied evenly. "That's good news. If they'd been discovered, we'd know by now." Operation Pathfinder represented the most daring implementation of Walker's evolving strategy. Using data from the captured nanites, human-led teams had identified what appeared to be a Void command vessel. Now, an infiltration unit was attempting something no one had believed possible: boarding a Void ship. "I still don't understand how they'll get past internal sensors," Zen admitted. Harris allowed himself a small smile. "We studied the Void's scanning frequencies. They're looking for specific biological and technological signatures, none of which match our infiltration suits." What Harris didn't mention was the brutal training the volunteer team had endured, learning to move like the Void, adopting their thermal and electrical patterns, or the fact that the mission's survival probability had been calculated at less than 30%. His comm unit pulsed silently against his wrist, a single data packet, heavily encrypted. Harris's pulse quickened as he decrypted the message. "They're in," he told Zen, "and they've found something." The discovery changed everything. The infiltration team, led by Lieutenant Ben Foster, had managed to access what appeared to be a data processing node within the Void vessel. The information they extracted revealed a shocking truth. The Void weren't a unified species as the Alliance had assumed, but biomechanical constructs, tools created by an intelligence that remained hidden. More importantly, they discovered the constructs operated on a networked communication system. Each Void vessel functioned semi-autonomously, but received periodic command updates through quantum entanglement nodes. When Captain Walker received this intelligence at Alliance Command, he immediately recognized its significance. "They're drones," he explained to the gathered Alliance leadership. "Sophisticated, yes, but ultimately tools following programming. And programs can be hacked." Admiral Trell looked skeptical. "Even if that's true, their technology is far beyond our capability to compromise." "Maybe beyond yours," Walker countered. "But Earth has been fighting digital wars for centuries. Information warfare is our specialty." The plan that emerged was two-pronged. First, capture a quantum communication node intact. Second, use it to introduce corrupted command protocols into the Void network. A virus, essentially, designed to alter harvest priorities and defensive responses. Implementing the plan required 6 more months of high-risk operations. 3 Alliance vessels were lost, and hundreds of soldiers, both human and alien, sacrificed themselves to secure the critical Void technology. The cost was high, but for the first time, the Alliance wasn't merely reacting to Void incursions. They were systematically undermining them. At a forward operating base established on an asteroid at the edge of contested space, Walker supervised the final preparations. The captured quantum node hummed ominously in a heavily shielded chamber, surrounded by Earth's best programmers and Alliance scientists. "The access sequence is almost ready," reported Dr. Ava Miller, the team's lead computer scientist. "Once deployed, the modified protocols will propagate through their network at the next synchronization cycle." Walker nodded, studying the screens displaying the complex code his team had developed. "And they won't detect the alterations?" "Not immediately," Miller admitted. "We've designed the changes to appear as optimizations to their harvesting protocols. By the time they recognize the corruption, it will have spread throughout their fleet." "What exactly will it do to them?" asked Kiv, who had become Walker's most trusted Alliance ally. "3 things," Walker explained. "First, it will subtly alter their resource priorities, diverting them away from populated worlds toward uninhabited systems. Second, it will introduce inefficiencies in their shield modulation, creating exploitable vulnerabilities. And third, it will establish a backdoor, allowing us to monitor their communications. Kiv's scales shifted, a sign of discomfort among his species. This approach, it feels like deception rather than honorable combat. Walker placed a hand on the alien's shoulder, a gesture he'd learned was respectful in Kiv's culture. In war, the most honorable victory is the one that saves the most lives. Remember that. Hours later, as the modified commands were uploaded to the quantum node, Walker stood alone in his quarters, staring at a holographic map of Alliance space. So much had already been lost, worlds stripped bare, civilizations ended, billions dead, but for the first time since the void emerged from the darkness, there was a glimmer of something that had been missing. Hope. The effects of Operation Disrupt weren't immediately apparent. The void continued their relentless advance, but subtle changes in their behavior began to emerge. Harvest ships diverted to uninhabited systems more frequently. Attack patterns became marginally less efficient. Shield harmonics fluctuated in predictable cycles. Small advantages, but in war, small advantages compound. Captain Walker stood in the Alliance flagship's war room, now transformed under human influence into a strategic command center unlike anything the Alliance had previously conceived. Holographic displays tracked void fleet movements across 3 spiral arms, while predictive algorithms calculated resource depletion rates and projected targets. The diversion protocols are working better than expected, Lieutenant Torres reported. Void harvest operations in populated systems have decreased 37% in the last 2 months. Admiral Trell, who had become Walker's staunchest ally among Alliance leadership, nodded thoughtfully. And the shield vulnerabilities? Exploitable, but only within narrow windows, Torres replied. Our joint strike teams have successfully damaged 14 void vessels using the modulation gaps. Walker studied the tactical display. Not enough. We're slowing them, not stopping them. The Council is pleased with our progress, Trell offered. The Council needs to understand we're still losing this war, just more slowly, Walker countered. We need to accelerate Phase 3. Phase 3 was the most controversial aspect of Walker's strategy. Direct strikes against what they now understood to be void manufacturing facilities. Massive space stations hidden in the darkness between star systems, where new harvest ships were constructed. The infiltration teams had discovered their locations, but attacking them would require a level of offensive coordination the Alliance had never attempted. More concerning to Alliance leadership was Walker's proposed method: weaponizing stars. The Stellar Converter project requires more testing, Trell cautioned. The calculations must be precise, or we risk catastrophic damage to surrounding systems. We don't have time for more tests, Walker insisted. Every day we wait, more worlds die. The Stellar Converter had been developed by a joint Human-Alliance team, combining Earth's theoretical physics with Alliance engineering. In simplest terms, it could temporarily alter a star's fusion rate, creating a precisely directed solar flare of unprecedented magnitude. The energy release could cross light years of space before dissipating, enough to overwhelm even void shielding. After heated debate, the Alliance Council approved Phase 3 with reluctance. Target selection focused on a void manufacturing facility located near a suitable K-class star. The operation would require perfect timing and coordination between 20 Alliance vessels positioned around the star's corona. Commander Ryan Lewis, a former Earth physicist, led the converter team aboard the science vessel Empirical Venture. As countdown approached, he addressed the combined Human-Alliance crew. Every calculation has been verified, Lewis assured them. The stellar material will follow the gravitational corridor we've established, striking the target with 97% of its initial energy. An Alliance scientist named Mira, whose species had evolved in the upper atmosphere of a gas giant, drifted nervously near the ceiling. But Commander, if our calculations are off by even a fraction, the stellar material could strike nearby systems. There are inhabited worlds within 10 light-years. That's why we won't be off, Lewis stated with characteristic human confidence. Everyone to your stations. Converter activation in 30 minutes. Across the fleet, tension mounted as the moment approached. This wasn't just another tactical engagement. It was a strategic gamble that would either turn the tide of war or prove that even humanity's radical approaches were insufficient against the void. On the boundless horizon, Walker and Trell watched the operation unfold. "Converter sequence initiated," came Lewis's voice over the comm. On the view screen, specialized energy projectors extended from the Alliance vessels surrounding the star. Beams of coherent energy penetrated the stellar surface, creating a gravitational pathway through space, a tunnel through which stellar material would travel faster than should be physically possible. "Magnetic confinement established," Lewis reported. "Stellar material capture in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The star's surface bulged, then erupted. A stream of superheated plasma, contained within the gravitational corridor, shot through space like a spear thrown by a god. The energy readings overwhelmed the sensors momentarily. Seconds stretched into minutes as the stellar material traversed the void between star and target. Then, confirmation arrived from observation outposts. "Direct hit," Torres announced, her voice tight with controlled emotion. The manufacturing facility's shields collapsed under the initial impact. Complete structural failure followed. Target destroyed. A moment of stunned silence fell over the bridge, followed by cautious celebration. For the first time, the Alliance had destroyed a major void installation. Admiral Trell turned to Walker, his 4 eyes blinking in sequence. Not from distress this time, but amazement. "It worked exactly as you predicted." Walker nodded, but his expression remained grave. "This was just one facility. Our intelligence indicates at least 6 more. And now that we've revealed this capability, they will adapt." Trell finished the thought. "Yes," Walker agreed. "But so will we." As the Alliance fleet regrouped, a new message arrived from Earth. 10,000 more human soldiers were being deployed to Alliance space, along with specialized equipment and weapons designed specifically for this conflict. Earth's industrial capacity had fully mobilized for war, something humans had perfected over millennia of practice. For the first time since the invasion began, the Void's advance had been checked. Not halted, not reversed, but checked. It was enough to kindle something that had been absent too long in Alliance space: determination. Hope was no longer just a distant memory. It was a weapon forged in the fires of human resolve. The war entered its 3rd year. What had begun as a desperate last stand had evolved into something unprecedented: a genuine resistance. The combined forces of humanity and the Alliance had transformed from victims into hunters, tracking Void movements, disrupting their harvests, and targeting their infrastructure. Earth had committed nearly 1 million soldiers to the conflict now, integrated throughout the Alliance fleet. Human innovation merged with alien technology, creating weapons and defenses neither civilization could have developed alone. Commander Emma Torres, promoted after Walker's elevation to admiral, stood on the observation deck of Starbase Sentinel, watching the assembly of the largest joint fleet in the history of the Milky Way. 5,000 vessels representing over 400 Alliance species arrayed in formation alongside Earth's contribution, 300 retrofitted warships bristling with hybrid weaponry. "Quite a sight, isn't it?" Admiral Walker said, joining her at the viewport. "Hard to believe this all started with just 10,000 of us," Torres replied. Walker nodded. "The Alliance learned quickly. Turns out they just needed to remember how to fight." The upcoming operation, codenamed Daybreak, would target the Void's central command hub, a massive station hidden in dark space that coordinated all harvest operations. Intelligence from the quantum network infiltration had finally revealed its location after years of patient data collection. "Do you think they know we're coming?" Torres asked. "Undoubtedly," Walker replied. "But knowing and stopping are different things." Across the station, final preparations were underway. Alliance scientists fine-tuned shield harmonics to counter the latest Void adaptations. Human tacticians ran combat simulations, identifying weak points and contingencies. Mixed species crews trained together, combining the Alliance's technical expertise with humanity's tactical instincts. Admiral Trell approached, accompanied by High Counselor Vex, who had become the political architect of the Alliance's transformation. "The final transports from Earth have arrived," Trell announced. "Your General Reed sends her regards and a message. Give them hell." Walker smiled slightly. "Typical Reed. Any word from our forward scouts?" "The corridor appears clear," Trell confirmed. The Void are concentrating their forces around the command hub, just as we predicted. Are we really ready for this? Vex asked quietly. After all this time, to strike at their heart. Walker's expression hardened. 3 years ago, you came to Earth because hope was lost. You found a species that doesn't know how to quit, even when logic says we should. That's what we brought to this fight. Not just tactics or aggression, but stubborn, irrational persistence. And it changed everything, Vex acknowledged. Hours later, the combined fleet made the jump to the target coordinates. The Void command hub loomed before them, a twisted structure like a massive black thorn, surrounded by hundreds of defender ships. All vessels, battle formation Theta, Walker ordered from the flagship's bridge. Stellar converter teams, stand by for targeting solution. This time, they had positioned stellar converters around 3 different stars, creating a triangulated attack that would be impossible to fully evade. Combined with conventional assaults from the fleet, it represented the culmination of everything they had learned about fighting the Void. Converter teams report ready, Torres confirmed. Walker took a deep breath. The Void came to our galaxy believing they found easy prey. Today they learn what happens when you corner a predator. All units, execute. The battle that followed would be recorded in the histories of 1,000 worlds. The stellar converters fired in perfect sequence, 3 spears of star stuff converging on the command hub from different vectors. Void defenders moved to intercept, sacrificing themselves to absorb the stellar energy. Simultaneously, the Alliance fleet engaged, using every weakness they had discovered over 3 years of adaptive warfare. Ships darted through the chaos, in formations no Void algorithm could predict, targeting shield vulnerabilities with precise timing. Human-designed infiltration teams launched from carrier vessels, bypassing external defenses to plant disruptive devices directly on Void ships. Alliance energy weapons, recalibrated to frequencies discovered through countless battles, found purchase where once they had been useless. On the flagship's bridge, Walker directed the symphony of destruction with calm precision, adjusting tactics as the Void responded. Beside him, Admiral Trell coordinated Alliance vessels with equal focus, the 2 commanders operating as one. The outer defensive ring is breaking, Torres reported, monitoring the tactical display. We have a clear vector to the command hub. Walker nodded. All strike teams converge on the primary target. Suppression units maintain coverage. As so say, the battle raged. Specialized vessels approached the command hub, carrying the operation's true purpose, a modified version of the virus they had planted in the quantum network years earlier. This ultimate version wouldn't merely disrupt Void operations, it would rewrite their core directives. The insertion team, led by Major Tom Harris, fought their way through the hub's outer defenses, taking heavy casualties but advancing steadily toward the central processing core. Every member knew the mission might be one way, and everyone had volunteered regardless. We're at the core access point, Harris reported through static-filled comms, beginning upload sequence. On the flagship, Walker and the Allied command staff waited in tense silence. Minutes passed with no update. Then, across the battlefield, Void ships began to falter. Attack patterns disintegrated into random movements. Some vessels simply powered down, floating dormant in space. It's working, Torres whispered, watching the tactical display in amazement. The command hub itself shuddered, internal lights flickering as its systems fought against the invasive reprogramming. For a moment, it seemed the structure might tear itself apart, but then it stabilized, now operating under new parameters. Harris's voice, weak but triumphant, came through the comm. Upload complete. Core accepting new directives. The Void, they're standing down. Across Alliance space, Void vessels ceased their attacks. The great harvesters that had devoured worlds fell silent. The nightmare that had threatened galactic civilization began to recede. In the aftermath, as the combined fleet secured the command hub and Alliance scientists worked to understand the Void technology, Walker found himself on the observation deck of the flagship, staring out at the stars. What did you program them to do? Admiral Trell asked, joining him at the viewport. We gave them new parameters, Walker explained. They'll continue to harvest resources, but only from uninhabited systems. They'll rebuild what they destroyed where possible. And most importantly, They'll defend Alliance space from any similar threats that might emerge from the darkness beyond. You turned our greatest enemy into guardians, Trell marveled. Walker shook his head. We turned tools back into tools. Whatever intelligence created the void is still out there somewhere. At least now we'll be ready when it shows itself. The aftermath brought profound changes to both civilizations. Earth was formally admitted to the Galactic Alliance with full honors. Humanity's aggressive tendencies, now recognized as a vital evolutionary adaptation rather than a disqualifying flaw. Alliance military doctrine underwent revolutionary transformation, incorporating human strategies and perspectives after 12,000 years of stagnation. 6 months after the final battle, a ceremony was held on Ulthrax Prime. Representatives from all Alliance species gathered to commemorate the victory and honor those who had sacrificed everything to achieve it. Thousands of names, human and alien alike, were enshrined in the Hall of Remembrance. High Counselor Vex addressed the assembly, her ancient voice carrying across the silent chamber. 3 years ago, hope was lost, she began. Our civilization, for all its wonders and achievements, stood at the precipice of extinction. We had forgotten something essential that our human allies never did. That survival sometimes requires more than wisdom and patience. Sometimes it requires fire. Walker, standing at attention with other commanders, felt the weight of those words. Fire had indeed been humanity's gift to the stars. Not just the capacity for destruction, but the spark of relentless determination that refused to be extinguished. Today, we honor those who stepped into the darkness when others could only see defeat, Vex continued. Earth's soldiers came when we called, bringing with them not just weapons or tactics, but a spirit our ancient civilization had forgotten. The spirit that says no matter the odds, no matter the enemy, we fight on. In the years that followed, human and Alliance personnel would work together to rebuild devastated worlds. The knowledge gained from void technology accelerated scientific progress across multiple fields. Defense systems were established throughout Alliance space, ensuring no similar threat could ever again catch them unprepared. And somewhere in the vast darkness between galaxies, whatever had created the void took notice. The easy harvest it had anticipated had transformed into unexpected resistance. Its tools had been turned against it, its plans thwarted. For now, it retreated. But it would return, eventually. When it did, it would find not a peace-loving civilization unprepared for conflict, but a galactic community that remembered how to fight. A civilization that had relearned an ancient truth. That hope is not just a feeling, but a decision made in the darkest moments, a decision to step into the fire, and Earth would be ready.